And we are live. Okay. Good day, everyone. GDG Almaty is here. My name is Aitwa. Today, we're having a special talk with Shahina Tojieva, joining us from San Francisco. And today, we're having moderators as well from GDG Almaty. Let's welcome Asil, this our IT director and WTM ambassador, Ivan Lushenko, Android tech lead, and Zharkan Shigova, project and program manager. And together we'll host today's session, and uh, in the end we'll have a Q&A session. So you have a chance to ask your questions on YouTube, and we will try to include as many questions as we can, and hopefully you will get your answers. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Shahina, and let's start our today's session.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Engineer here at Google, specifically at the YouTube team. And here today, I'm about to present on the topic of how to join Google right after graduation, based on my own personal story. So this is the outline for today's presentation. I'll make sure to include all the links to all the important resources that I will mention at the end of the presentation. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to start off with a little bit of background about myself, specifically talking about my international student life here in America, how I started to develop my interest in computer science, and just overall my academic background that led me to here at Google. And then I'm going to switch to the overall process of job/internship hunt here in America, and some of the tips that I think I found extremely useful and helpful for myself. Then I'm gonna, of course, try to talk about the application process for positions at Google and how all my 4 interviews went. And lastly, our work at Google. So that's the best part. So I kept it till the end and made sure to include all our personal pictures from my day-to-day life. So I'm going to start off with my background. I was born and raised in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and I moved to the United States for high school. And essentially, that's how my first exposure to computer science started off through, of course, initial formal education, where I was taking lots of classes in sciences and computer science specifically. And through that, I learned about this field, and extension of that was different clubs and associations that our high school offered, which are grouped as extracurricular activities. So clubs such as Women in STEM and Girls Who Code were very essential for me to find a community of other girls who are also eager to get into this field where women used to be underrepresented. And it was an amazing opportunity to connect with like-minded people and also share resources with each other so that we can grow together. And this led me to participate and join different hackathons with the same group of girls, or small coding competitions. And one brightest memory from my time in high school was this codeathon organized by Booking.com. And you guys might have heard about them. It's a booking company. And they organized a small codeathon here in San Francisco where they flew in a bunch of girls from high school to spend a weekend together in a circle of other like-minded people, but also senior software engineers that shared very inspiring stories and kind of gave us an introduction to the field where we built our own websites. So it was an amazing opportunity to get started and understand that this is the field I want to go with. But I found the overall culture of women in STEM in America very encouraging as well. And you see it manifest in different channels, whether through scholarships, conferences, different opportunities tailored specifically for girls, right? And the younger you start, the more impressive it is. So I remember participating and attending different events organized by the companies, or different nonprofits like Girls Who Code here. At that point, I was living in DC, so around that area, and attending them, whether virtually and in person, was very helpful to bond and build the necessary skills early on, right? Which is very necessary in my opinion. But a highlight of my last few years at high school was this program, which some of you might have heard about, called Google Computer Science Summer Institute. And this played a big role in how I ended up here at Google now. But this was my first kind of involvement with the company and their programs they offer. This program is offered specifically for high school students, and it's designed to kind of do a soft launch into programming, and it provides the necessary skills and preparations for you to take on higher level classes in colleges. And one thing essential for me was that it also kind of did a small introduction to an overall interview, technical interviews that you would need to start going through if you were planning to do internships or job applications. So that was my first ever experience, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it was virtual because it was during COVID, but I believe it's in person now. So I really recommend checking it out, or anything that's alternative to this program. And I'm a big supporter of being earlier on involved with the field, just to build the necessary background. Moving on to my academic background beyond high school. So I ended up going to a small liberal arts school on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. It's called Franklin and Marshall College. We're not necessarily strong in STEM sciences, but it's a liberal arts school, meaning it makes you well-rounded in other subjects as well. But it was very integral for me because it was a very small community and environment of other international, domestic students, and bonding with the other bright people was very essential. And most importantly, I think I really benefited from talking and connecting with the seniors who were successful, and they were in places where I wanted to be, right? They were integral in shaping my understanding of what I want to end up doing after graduation. Because for me, or at least in computer science, there were two main paths towards after graduation, and which was one, academia, so pursuing research and going further with graduate degree or PhD, which many of my friends end up doing, and I think it's an amazing path. And the second pathway was industry, right? Going straight to work and kind of start, doing hands-on job right away, and seeing my kind of senior friends pursuing jobs at Amazon, MongoDB, and Google, right, was very inspiring, and they shaped my pathway for the next 4 years by explaining the essentials of what I'm essentially covering right now in my presentation of participating in different projects, doing hackathons, internships, right, and being like fully involved within the field. And speaking of hackathons, I do remember doing a bunch earlier on my freshman and sophomore years in college. Some of the like highlighted ones for me were different universities such as MIT, George Washington, and NYU. And for those who don't are not very familiar with hackathons, it's essentially a free opportunity for you to spend a weekend, all-nighters, at a campus, or it could be organized by a company or a nonprofit. Spend a weekend building projects with your other peers, and you don't have to come prepared with a group. You can make a group right there, and you essentially get to build something, right, and learn stuff on your way. And at the end, of course, there are prizes in different categories, and there's opportunity for you to win monetary or other form of prizes. But my experience with hackathons was great. Here at the picture, I'm at the MIT hackathon, and my group consisted of everyone who flew into the States just for that weekend, except me. I just have to drive up north, but I had a girl from Spain and someone from Germany, someone from Canada, and we formed the team right there at the spot. And it was an amazing experience where we get to build something that I would never imagine, would be possible without the help of others, and especially other sponsors and engineers who are present at the hackathon, usually to help around. So it was a great way to actually build a useful product that we end up continuing working on after hackathon. And in addition to that, I really recommend getting working on side courses or pursuing certifications in addition to your main coursework in college. Mainly because I saw a lot of benefit of doing that early, because when you're in college, your school doesn't usually immediately dump you into higher level programming classes where you kind of get on practical skill. At least in my school, it was more theoretical. And so my freshman year, I really benefited taking different courses on mobile app development. And this led me to working on different side projects and startups my first year as well. So I remember my first mobile app language that I pursued was Flutter. And if you guys have heard about it, it's a framework created by Google back in 2014 or 17. And it was easy enough for me to get started. And when I was approached by some of my senior classmates to help them build the small startup as part of our school's incubator program, I was very overjoyed, and this opportunity felt like very, like niche. So I was like, let me pick up a programming language and stick with it, and be able to build stuff with it and deliver. That was an amazing opportunity to like build something meaningful and connect again with the same senior classmates that end up graduating, and we still in touch afterwards. So that was one way of kind of showcasing your skills to your recruiters outside of classes that you're in. It's integral to show them that you're building something actively and you have this builder mindset, where when you not just follow tutorials or take classes, but you also actually putting those skills in use. And another half of my college years, I was mostly dedicated in research. And you might ask, like, if I'm pursuing jobs and going into the industry, is there any point in doing research? I would argue and say yes, because for me, my research was essential in a way to build a relationship with my professors. But also, when you're involved with research, there is, to an extent, technical skills you would need to acquire on your way, right? It could be essential, like even like turning on your computer and like managing command lines and terminals, and that those skills, which might seem very foundational, I don't think I would have been able to pursue it on my own very well, as much as under the supervision of my professor. And my research was specifically in Android security, and we were researching different vulnerability and pitfalls of applications in the industry that are being used, and how we can simulate that and find these vulnerabilities and find a better way of securing applications, which involved a lot of times, building APKs and going through the source codes of open source projects. So kind of having that experience of constantly looking at code, debugging, and even like writing papers is integral when you start working at a big scale companies where you do have to do that daily, right? And oftentimes, even recruiters and interviewers themselves show curiosity about your academic research, and it shows that you were involved and doing something to benefit the industry. And lastly, I would mention the importance of network. So, the school that you go to matters to a certain extent. Of course, it does play a role if you go to like big school names like Stanford and MIT. But in my opinion, is like what you make of your experience is what matters the most. So for me personally, it was the network that I got to build throughout those 4 years with my professors and peers, right? And also outside of school as well, because during those 4 years, you were not only limited to your campus, but also people and students, outside of that area as well. So there's this fellowship that I was very strongly involved with, and it's called Rewriting the Code. Mostly it's for women, but I'm sure there's a bunch of fellowships for co-ed and men. But this one specifically was an online community for women across different age ranges. So there was a community for students, early career, and then more senior positions. And we technically had a platform, Slack channel, where we just had breakdown of different topics and people actively engaging in conversations, asking questions, and helping each other. And that's how I got to know about many opportunities, resources, and I met a lot of amazing people that where they would organize these in-person events at a company or do tours of different places, and we would end up meeting up, and I would stay connected with them afterwards, and that would turn into a much stronger bond where we help each other with the recruitment process, interviews. And in fact, that's how I found my first roommate for my first internships, because we figured that we were in the same cohort for that specific internship at the company. And I made sure to include this link to this fellowship at the end, but I really recommend checking it out. And speaking in terms of like importance of network, one of my like favorite stories, obviously, is how in fact Larry and Sergey met at Stanford back in 1995, and it shows the power of network within a school, right? And if you guys are familiar, the story goes that Bryn was a current student at a graduate school, I believe, and Paige was an prospective incoming student, and they were touring the campus. And they famously clashed and didn't get along at the beginning. But in 1996, the same connection kind of led them to work on a dorm room project called Backrub, which is currently known as Google. So it's a search engine, and it shows how this geographic proximity leads to people connecting and kind of finding commonality either way, right? No matter how you start off. So, look around yourself, like your campus and university, and see if you can find like-minded people who are equally passionate about the field. Moving on to the important and interesting part about job hunt. So I really like to emphasize, and I was told this as well, to start preparations early, whether you're in high school or freshman in college, and it matters because that's how you build up your portfolio or resume and be prepared for real world job applications once you graduate, right? And like I mentioned in the previous slide, it's very integral for you to be also involved outside of classes. So making time for hackathons and personal projects is important. And I recommend doing it in your earlier years of like freshman and sophomore, because later on, juniors and senior year are reserved for actual applications for internships and other graduation requirements as well as job applications. So having that portfolio ready and built up early on is what helped me the most. And again, early on, you also don't have a lot of commitments, right? For graduation, your classes are tend to be easier, and you're just fresh out of high school, right? Where you're also trying to meet friends and make new connections. So it's that would be my advice. And in terms of portfolio, I was told this also by another senior in my college, where it was important to work on side projects or anything that's helps you to showcase your skills outside of classes, because not just for the recruiters but for your own sake, it's important to be putting the skills that you're learning in class or outside in use, and that's how it builds up your understanding of the concept and of the tools that you're using, by building something meaningful and build something that's important to you, something you would use yourself. I remember my first project was related to housing issue on our campus, where we had difficulty of connecting subleasers with subletters, so people who were looking for a place and people who had a place for the summer, and the platform that existed was not just efficient. And so I came across this problem myself when I moved out of campus. So building something like that was very close to me, and I was able to interview a lot of people and like kind of create this a niche problem that we tried to solve as a group. But that was a fun side project I got to work on. And I'm going to mention internships because, again, this is something I was told to apply early, because the earlier you apply and the earlier you get to build that necessary skill of being in the workforce and doing real world projects with real world impact. And having that history of various internships at various different companies really helps the recruiters to see that you were actively already involved in the industry, and you come with a background, come with the necessary skills to contribute at that specific company at that moment. But in addition to that, a lot of people, like, I feel like, have this stigma that it's too early for internships and interviews are hard. I can wait till junior summer. I would say it doesn't matter where you end up working. It's the process of itself. Applying for internships is essential because it helps you to build the ability to interview, do technical interviews with real interviewers, and it's much better than doing any mock technical interviews by yourself, right? So having that history be doing many interviews is going to really pay off at the end. And on topic of referrals, I would say referrals matter, but to an extent. So try to get them, especially during internship. I think it's nice to have. And since it's a recurring program, every year you have a chance to apply. So in that case, I think referrals can be very effective. And but again, it's never like I mentioned earlier, it's never too early to start lead coding. And when I say lead coding, that's the structure of doing technical interviews. And the earlier you start, by your senior year, you're going to have a really extensive coverage of technical questions, and the patterns you start recognizing. And when you come across a similar question, it's going to be much easier, and you won't be lost in the face of a new question. So, and lastly, I'm going to try to go about lead coding more in depth when I talk about my experience entering at Google. But what helped me the most is finding other peers who were on the same track of like doing internships, applying for jobs, and we would do lead coding together. So it's just like, committing to one person or group of people and meeting up, daily or every other day and working on a set of questions together to understand how everyone thinks, because during interview you're encouraged to communicate and showcase your thinking, and seeing how others things also can stimulate you to have different perspective on the problem. More on the topic of internships and jobs, I would say your resume is also essential, as many of you guys know. For me specifically, I was told that you need to have a master resume. So the resume itself needs to be short, 1 page if you're going for industry, and it needs to showcase your work using as much as possible, like adjectives, numbers, anything, any type of data that showcase your impact, right? But also having a master resume strategy is essential because it allows you to have a one long database of all the contributions and work you've done, your work experiences, projects, certifications. And anytime you're applying for a job, you can tailor your that specific one pager resume based on what that specific job role is asking for. So let's say it's a web position, a web development position. You can look at your master resume. It could involve a lot of different frameworks you worked in the past, but you go and pick something related to that specific role, and it acts as a big database of all the achievements you have done. And this applies even after graduation. I was told many times to keep track of your contributions, work you've done, anything essential that could play a big role in the future. Just because I feel like you cannot trust your own memory, and even during interviews, right, they might ping something and kind of pull up something from your resume and ask you about it. But that moment, it could have happened 3, 4 years ago. So something keeping like this and constantly looking at it keeps it fresh in your mind. And I spoke a lot about internships, but as a case study, I want to like to mention my personal internship experience at a company called Esri. And before Esri, I've interned at smaller startups and volunteered in a couple nonprofit organizations. But my like favorite experience so far was at a company called Esri, where essentially they develop GIS tools, which stands for Geographic Information System. But it's actually Google Maps on steroids. And I got to work with a very new beta project that they were launching. And my team was full of amazing mentors, senior engineers that I got to learn a lot in a span of about 3 months of that summer. And having that like proximity and access to the greatest minds of the industry every day, right, was this surreal experience. And I think I learned and acquired a lot more compared to if I worked on something on my own, right, like a project, or if I was kind of pursuing a different path. So I really recommend doing internships. It's very fun, and in addition to that, you meet a lot of other people, right? So my cohort had amazing people that I'm still in touch with, and we meet up 2 or 3 times a year because most of them are here in the Bay, and it's a great opportunity to just like make long-term friendships. But yeah, I'm just gonna emphasize to apply early, and everything is a numbers game. A lot of people get discouraged that they don't see any results, they don't see any, acceptances or offers. But at the end, I think the odds are higher of you being accepted and landing in an offer if you apply for more. So I made sure to include a lot of like repositories or databases that I used in order to stay on top of all the new opening internships and jobs, and the link is at the end. But it helps to constantly be checking what's new, what's opening up, and applying as early as possible, because there are thousands and thousands of other candidates waiting to get an offer. So the earlier you get in, the higher your chances to passing the interviews and kind of like starting your process. Now we can move on to the actual application and interview experience for me while I was applying for Google. So my pathway was a little bit different from what I've heard, in a way that I was reached out by a recruiter But I would say that, reaching when a recruiter reaches out to you, it means that you're being noticed in many ways. So it could be that my LinkedIn or maybe my previous applications, because I remember applying for the internships and different programs they have every year, led me to be kind of in their vision, or kind of being somehow stuck in their database. I honestly don't know how it works behind the scenes, but constantly applying and being involved with the company helps you to kind of like build a connection with them. And later on, even if they give you a rejection, they always say something like, "Oh, if there's a new opening or something that fits you, we would make sure to reach out." And oftentimes, rarely, they do reach out. So that's the purpose of me saying it, is that keep applying, don't be hopeless, because you will somehow end up being on the radar, and they'll remember you somehow and will reach out to you eventually. And recruiter kind of reaching out to me allowed me to apply early, because I remember them mentioning when the role will be opening up. And specifically for companies like Google, there are many other applicants waiting for the application to open up every day. So having that date ahead allowed me to prepare my resume, my LinkedIn, like having a full, prepared profile for the recruiters. And as soon as the application opened up, I made sure to apply right away. And this was my first time passing the Google initial resume round. And after that, I was reached out for further stages. And so the overall timeline was that, I was reached out about early October. I was reached out for the first round of interview, and then which was like a technical assessment, an online assessment where you don't have an interviewer. But after that, you were notified. You would be notified that you passed or not, and that happens very fast. Their evaluation is pretty quick. And I was given around. There was a very quick group call afterwards, like where a recruiter was walking us through what's the next step. And the next step was the final round of interviews, which is infamous because it's like 4 rounds of technical interviews back to back. And I scheduled that around early December. So I had like a 5 or 6 weeks of in between gap, which I on purpose put to myself so I could prepare for the interviews even more and kind of target Google specific, type of technical questions. So early December, I had my interviews, which was 3 technical, 1 behavioral interview in one day. And afterwards, you also get notified very quickly if you passed or not. And then that's when the waiting game starts, because once you pass your interviews, big companies like Google, they do team matching, where they wait for a team to have a headcount, an open position, and then you kind of interview or talk to that specific team and their manager and see if you'll be a good fit for that product area. And sometime early April, I was reached out by YouTube. I had a small talk with my manager, really loved the team, and the framework and tech stack really fit me well. And I was very excited. So afterwards, you sign an offer once you have a team, agreeing to take you in. But here on the right, I have like the standard interview process that I heard about, where you have, your resume screening, which I did too. Then you have a recruiter call you for 30, 45 minutes. I don't know exactly what they talk about, but it could be a range of questions based on your resume. They could ask you more details to share about your story. It could be some technical questions. For other companies, sometimes a recruiter or the manager will call you and they just outright talk to you about your technical experience. And then lastly, it's a round of technical behavioral phone screens, right? Which varies from company to company, but at Google specifically, it's multiple rounds and it happens in one day. But also they had something. Well, the virtual loop is the last round where they do the back to back. So there could be a series of different technical questions in between based on the role you're applying, of how senior it is, and just overall your background. So, and on topic of interviews, I would like to mention like the specific resources that I use to help me a lot. So obviously, Lead Code, definitely get premium. It's really worth it because it doesn't only give you access to a bigger variety of questions, but also gives you access to learning stacks, which is just a whole collection of uh, DSA topics that you would learn in a class, but it's just gathered to you there. And it touches upon important aspects of that you would see on interviews, like the time complexity, the space complexity, which might not be necessarily covered in a class, right? So that was an essential tool for me. The secondary tool that I really recommend is called Coding Interview Patterns by Grokking. I think they're like different variations of the same course, but what it does, it offers you not just different topics to practice, but like patterns of interviews, technical interview questions that you will start noticing on your own if you have like years and years of doing experience of doing lead code. But here, the course just compiles you a list of patterns that you could immediately look at, and next time you see a question, you already know what type of pattern it is and the strategy necessary to solve it. So some of you guys have heard about like 2-pointer, 3-pointers, and tree questions. Uh, all of that is falls under a category of patterns, and in the course they go through like 20 patterns in depth. So I really recommend. I made sure to include the link in the doc as well. And in addition to that, I do remember reading books about technical interviews my junior and sophomore year because I had more time. So before jumping straight into lead coding, I remember reading books like Cracking the Technical Interview and Algorithms, just to get like a theoretical understanding of what are you working with, like what is DSA and how do you structure algorithms. So you have the necessary thinking, because during interviews, as many of you know, they do evaluate your thinking and communication a lot. So being able to communicate while you're working is another tool that you need to learn, and it comes with practice. So doing lots of mocks with your peers or other ones and just doing interviews helps to build that skill. One thing essential, what I was told, is that to not be to not give up when you're stuck or you're not coming to a solution as the interview is ending, because I think it's essential for you to be constantly talking about your thinking process. And let's say you're stuck, I think you can still communicate what would be your next steps, what approach you would take, without necessarily having the time to code it up. And oftentimes it depends on the recruiter or the interviewer. Sometimes they can be harsh, sometimes they would demand a written coding solution, but oftentimes they would want to just hear your thinking process and see if you know the solution. Like if you were given a little bit more time, you would have figured it out. And yes, I had cases where I would not have the 100% solution, but like quickly mentioning what I would do to come to the solution was sometimes enough to pass the round. So, and yeah, and about the behavioral interviews, it's often the easiest, especially at Google. They call it Googliness round, where they check how nice of a person or how googly you are. And for any behavioral interview, I always use the STAR method, where you talk about your, situation, like you start the scene of what happened when you're answering the question, then your task at hand, what were you given, what was the, action you were supposed to take, and A is the action, so what you did, and R is the result, so what lessons you learned or the outcome of that specific scenario. And oftentimes, behavioral interviews are phrased in a way where you have to talk about a situation. So you cannot just give a generic answer. You need to give a specific instance from the past that made you realize or come to a specific conclusion. So that was easiest, but also the most fun round. And my overall intro experience with Google was very amazing, because I remember like finishing it and thinking like, even if I don't pass or don't get an offer, it was so worth it, because talking to these engineers who were so humble, open-minded, and very, very eager to help and give you hints, right, was so encouraging. And it was such a warm experience that after finishing the call, I was just happy to talk to another Googler and be like, oh my gosh, like they're amazing. And that kind of made me automatically want to also end up at this place like this and work with people such as them. And so yeah, I talked about team matching a little bit, where it's kind of the last round. You don't do much besides just wait for a team to show interest in you, and honestly, then it's just more about like you advertising for yourself and saying what you want in your team, right? I remember mentioning how I wanted to work with an in-person team, because in my previous experiences, most of the companies I worked for were remote, so I lacked that in-person connection. And I remember I was told, yes, like everyone's here in person and we're here at office 3 times a week, was such a great news for me. So I was like, this is what I was looking for. And overall, the product itself was very interesting. I was an avid YouTube user since my childhood, always had YouTube Premium. So I remember just like immediately, saying yes because that's the product I use myself every day. So working on something you love and understand is way more, inspiring than doing something you don't necessarily fully have a grasp of. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the overall work at Google and the culture. I made sure to include lots of pictures from, day-to-day life. Here on the right side, I have a picture from the New York office that I visited very recently. On top, I have our breakfast that we get and the bikes, of course. So working at Google is a very rewarding experience because initially right off when you join as a new grad, you're not expected to know a lot or to have a lot of experience, obviously. So you go through an onboarding process of like learning the way things are done at Google, but also you're given a 12 months when you're just a noogler or a new Googler, right? So everyone treats you with patience and tries to help you out. People are extremely responsive and very eager to help you. And there's massive opportunities for growth. So it's whatever you do with the resources again, right? And it's easy to connect with other Googlers, other engineers, because like everyone sits right across you and on the same floor, and you are given access to every single office Google owns. So if you want to go meet up with someone or see new faces, you can always visit a new office and seek mentorship or friendship through that pathway. And overall, it's a very strong community where it's blame free and encourages you to learn every day. And it's really great. So I think I mentioned earlier, but I'm part of the YouTube ads team, and I was the way like it's structured at Google. You have product areas, right? And when you're within a product area, there's like a bunch of teams within it. So it's there's like tons and tons of teams under YouTube, but where the headquarters of YouTube is in San Bruno, in California, North California, and is the Bay. So I oftentimes travel between offices and visit other teammates at different locations. And overall, the culture is very inviting for you to be like coming to office every day, whether on like although we're in a hybrid system. So and at the end, I would like to mention how like the perks. I think it's the essential part. So everyone knows about the free food culture at Google, but in addition to that, we have access to bunch of internal online resources and classes, whether it's like coding classes, talking, speaking classes, leadership lessons, or fitness classes. Speaking of fitness, we have a bunch of gyms and other facilities like inside of the campuses, and I we have shuttle system that picks you up from your house, drops you up at your work. And my favorite perk so far is the access to other offices around the world. So not just where you're seated or the country you're in, but I know a lot of my teammates travel and then they can easily work from an office in like Tokyo or Dubai. So it's a huge advantage of like having being part of such strong community that welcomes their employees to work every day and ensures they have the necessary resources and reasons to show up to work every day. I think that's my last slide. Here's the QR code for all the resources I mentioned. I tried to compile them to one doc and link everything. And also, if anyone wants to have further conversations or ask more questions, I made sure to include my LinkedIn on the right side as well. So thank you very much for listening. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much, Shahina. This was really lovely, comprehensive presentation. Yes, we do have questions. And I think, Ivan, would you like to start? We have, I think, the first question, and I can show.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So thanks once again, Shahina, for the talk. It was like really interesting, and yeah, you just showed everything, like from the beginning, how you just got into the culture and how you ended up in such a nice company. So once again, thank you. And the first question would be, how and why did you choose your college? Were there any criteria?
Oh, that's a great question. So I remember just applying to lots of schools. I even forgot that I applied to this college until they came out to me with an acceptance. But I remember applying for it initially mainly because I'm an international student, and I wanted to end up in a place where they have a community of internationals and have a support for them, whether it's financial or just community support for the foreign community. And Franklin Marshall College is a small school, but it has a very, very big community of international students coming from very different countries. And I personally worked at an office that works with these kids, and the community and people they have is just amazing. And I built a lot of long-term connections with the same people, thanks to all the support. And of course, the financial aid was a big factor in that as well. Not sure how it is now, but back then they did provide a very generous support for international students. And in terms of programs, they had a strong programs of in liberal arts pathways, so like business, government. And I do remember wanting to try out business for my undergrad in addition to a STEM degree that I would pursue. So like knowing that really helped me to decide that this is the school I want to go with for next 4 years.
So thank you. Joaquin, maybe the next question will be from you.
Okay, just well, I have one question actually, but I'll keep it till the end of the call, and let me just read it from the YouTube that we have. So, a master resume is an interesting concept that you mentioned on one of your slides. So, is it possible for you to share that resume?
I do have my own one that I've like compiled since freshman year of my college. But if you search up for one at Google, I'm sure there's a tons of templates, and it ranges and it's like very different for people. But usually, if you're pursuing a degree in, I mean, if you want to go into industry in tech, I was told to have an outline of like having your education, right, different certificates and courses you worked on, then a breakdown of your projects. So any type of projects. It could be something you did in class, something you did on your own, small startups you worked with. And then lately is the work experience where you compile everything you worked on, whether it doesn't have to be even technical, just any type of work experience. And in that case, you have like a big comprehensive list of your achievements and stuff you have done in the past that you could bring up during interviews and talk about. But I can include a template of the some of the good master resumes in the doc I linked.
Yeah, that would be great. And once again, thank you for such comprehensive answers. And the next one is like still about the resume. And what about soft skills? Does it matter? Do you include them in the master resume template?
So what you include in your master resume is really up to you because no one will technically see it besides you. The concept of master resume strategy is that it's just for yourself. When you start applying for jobs, you are going to be taking the necessary, like information or your achievements, stuff you've done in the back, to include in the one page or small resume that you'll be submitting for jobs. So including soft skills is really up to you if you have space. I remember, and like not just me, a lot of my other peers would always be running out of space because the overall standard in industry is that you need to have one page your resume. The longer it is, the recruiter is not going to be looking at it because they have like 4 or 5 seconds rule. So you want to make sure you're being mindful of your space in your one page your resume. And if you have space and there's a way to include it, I would say definitely, because knowledge of net languages is, for example, right, like languages and other leadership skills, it matters a lot. But also it's something you could verbally mention during the interview process itself. It's something the recruiter would find, important as well.
Thank you so much. That's actually a good hint about one page because, as for me, I had advice from a recruiter and she said, "Oh, 3 pages, that's totally okay." So
Yeah.
now I have another point of view. Thank you so much. So next question is about working at Google, and has the schedule changed recently? A lot of companies asking, requesting the employees to come to the office. So, and this is really a, a thing that everybody, a topic that everybody is discussing and arguing, like it's like a holy war. So, did it change in Google?
100%. I think I joined post COVID like this May. So for me, it always been hybrid, like ever since I joined. But I was talking to my other teammates and just looking back in the history of Google, during COVID, everything was remote. And post COVID, a lot of, I think even before COVID, they had a remote workers policy where you could work remotely. But because after COVID, they, not just Google, many other companies tried to bring in more people back to office. So specifically at Google, I believe we now have hybrid and in-person, what is it called, positions only. So they stopped supporting remote recently because they want everyone in person. They want people to be kind of sitting next to each other and having this like connections and developing the network. So a lot of my remote teammates have been returning back to office. Yeah.
Thanks. And the next question, I really like it because it's gonna give some insights about like you as a person. So, what was a challenge for you when you started working? Not it's not about the hard skills per se, but about mindset or maybe habits, something which was new for you, which you were not used to.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I agree. I would say it's a challenge I still kind of face a little bit every day is that like people at Google don't really see themselves as gods. Like they're so down to earth and very humble. When I joined first, obviously I was like excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'll be working next to these like amazing engineers from amazing backgrounds. But everyone is so down to earth, very humble, and it just amazes me till this day to like see these people every day who just like have a regular life outside of work, and they're just like they're all like us, they have life problems, they get happy and sad. So seeing these engineers like as something like unreal is, I think, a little bit wrong mindset, because at the end of the day it puts you in this mindset where you think you would never reach that and kind of limits you. And thinking that you could be there one day because you're equally deserving as anyone else is very important, because like me joining this company, for me, which was seemed like unreachable, was a very interesting experience. 'Cause, like, again, like these people are extremely down to earth, humble, and oftentimes you forget you're at a company like Google until you get invited to talks like these. So yeah, seeing people who are like, very much human like us was not challenging, but I guess very interesting experience that I'm still trying to get used to every day.
Thanks. And it was like really nice of you to say that people working at Google are the same people like us, because actually I think a lot of people who are watching this are positioning you to be gods as some of the people working at Google. Okay, and the next question that we have, it's more about your like day-to-day job. Maybe you could give us some information. How does YouTube decide which new features to prioritize?
Oh, okay. That's awesome, because that's something I'm still learning. But specifically in like what I know is that we do use a lot of machine learning. It might be a wrong answer because I'm still like new to the system, but I think we do use a lot of machine learning and other personalized algorithms that looks at your interests and feeds, just like Instagram and other social network app. We try to make it personalized. So seeing what you watched in the past, what you're interested, there's a machine learning algorithm in the back that's generating these new kind of contents that you'll be seeing on your home feed or watch feed. Even ads are all personalized. So that's my take. I might not be completely right, but that's the impression I got.
Thank you. So that's a secret that we will reveal, hopefully, or you will reveal and maybe share with us.
Uh-huh.
So, and the question from me is, what is the one piece of advice you would give to anyone who wants to enter fun companies?
Okay. Yeah, there's so many advice I would give, but let me think of one really good one. Um, I would say um, it's important to like, I think it's important to apply and like, not give up and like try to, as much as possible, like get involved with these companies early on. But also building meaningful applications. Like make sure you research the company that you want to work for, and there's a reason you want to be part of the company, not just because of its brand name, right? Because many companies not oftentimes work on the most ethical products or whatever, right? So what drove me to Google, like I mentioned earlier, was like as I was interviewing and as I was participating in different programs it offers, I came to learn about its work life culture, right, where they have people wanting to show up to work every day and loving their job. And overall, the work life balance is much healthier, I was told. And I looked at the statistics at Google compared to other things, right? So make sure you research the company thoroughly. I wouldn't say don't apply just because you found something, but like as you're going through the application process, make sure you build this connection with the company. So later, even when the interviewer or recruiter asks you, like, why us? Because they like to ask this question, you have some meaningful answers, and be an avid user of their products, because it's hard to work, even if you like fake it and make it through the interviews. It's hard to work at a company where or on a product which you don't have which you never used or kind of don't have interests in. Because I mean, me personally, when I was part of Esri, didn't even know what GIS is, right? I was never in that field, so it was a little bit hard to onboard, to understand what I'm building, how is it impacting people. But at Google, it was so much easier because I was already aware about the culture, and YouTube, I use it every day. So I was like, okay, like this is something I would enjoy working on, no matter how challenging it gets, because it will get hard, and you should be able to like have a reason of staying and doing your work every day.
Uh, cool. Thank you so much, Shahina. I think we answered all the questions, and if you have a question that you want to be answered, you can have them ask in the QR code that Shahina kindly provided, and you can ask questions and connect on LinkedIn. So that will be actually it. We'll be wrapping up today's live stream. Would like to thank again Shahina for such a comprehensive, very full, engaging talk presentation. So let's give huge round of applause. Yeah.
Thank you very
I
much
don't know
for
if you
having
can hear the applause, but virtual applause. Hopefully, yeah, we're very excited and very grateful for your time, and we hope to hear from you soon from all your accomplishments, and we hope to continue to have such live streams more often. So we'd like to thank the audience here today for joining us live, and of course you can join and watch it as a recording as well. So I think that would be it. Then we'll be wrapping up our live stream. So thank you so much, and have a good day and evening. Yeah, wherever. Like
you.
in San Francisco, I suppose it's like a day. Yeah, morning or day.
Yes.
Early
Yeah.
morning. Okay. So have a good day, Shahina,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much, Ashed, Shahin, Ivan, for such engaging Q&A session as well and moderating today's session. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Let's go. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.